Hello, this is Bailey with SmartDIYs. In today's video, I'm just going to take you through a basic overview of the user interface for SmartDIYs Creator. That's the software you're going to need to use any of the Fabul machines or the Etcher Laser. Now, I'm just going to go through a quick overview of the user interface, but if you need more details, you should check out the manual. You can find that by opening the software and going to Help, Open Software Manual, and it'll bring you right to it. Or if you ever forget that, go to our home page, the product page for SmartDIYs Creator, and then scroll down to the bottom. Below Download Software, the manual will be right here. So back in the software, I'm just going to work from top to bottom. File, Edit, and Selection are all buttons you'll be familiar with if you work with any word processing software like Microsoft Word or any kind of design software. You can open a new project, open a saved project, or save your project right here. You can also see, depending on your computer, the keyboard shortcuts. You can see I'm using a Mac. You'll have different ones if you're using a Windows device. Then Edit, I can undo something I've done or then redo it. Or if I had a design on there, I could then copy, paste, or delete it. Selection will just let you select all. It will let you select all of the designs you have on the screen right here. For machine, it'll give you a few tools to control your machine. You can either stop or go to the origin. You can also create the grid item. If you are using the Etcher Laser, this may not be as helpful for you, but if you're using the Fabul that does not have a camera to help you adjust, you may want to create a grid to lay underneath your machine. And right here, it will just build a grid for whatever machine you have selected. So mine right here was created for the Etcher Laser because that's what machine I have selected. User Dictionary we'll go over in a second, but this will be the manager for that. Settings is what you're definitely going to want to open as soon as you get your machine. So under machine here, it will let you select what model you have. Each of the Fabuls, or like I've been using right now, the Etcher Laser. Then for the Etcher Laser and the Fabul Laser Mini, you'll need to choose whether you have the 1.6 watt model or the 3.5 watt model. You'll notice here for the Mini, you can also change the width and height. If you have the Mini, you may know that you can get the extension kit to extend this size out to 1,000 by 1,000 meters, or millimeters, excuse me. And then you can see right here, it'll change your grid to be that size. So now I'm just going to go back, re-choose the Etcher Laser as my machine, choose my wattage, and I'm done. Unit display will let you change your display units between millimeters and inches. Most places in the world, like our Japanese office, will need to use millimeters, but here in the US we usually use inches, so that's what I have mine set. And you can see down here that my grid line spacing is going to be 25.4 millimeters, that's just 1 inch. And it has the grid subdivided into 2 smaller squares. I can change that into, 1, or we'll even say 4 here. And then you can see how that affects my grid. And then have 4 subdivisions for each inch. And I'll go back to my settings, change this just back to the default. Or if I wanted to turn off the grid, I could just click right there. And I'd have a blank processing area. But I'll go back, check it, and turn the grid back on. Line width, this is just showing you the preview of what your lines will look like. Basically, how thin the line will be when the laser cuts it. So this isn't something you'll need to change. Speaking of things you don't need to change, let's look at seek speed and correction. Seek speed means the speed of the laser head when it's moving between objects or when it's moving to process the laser. So, for example, if I have, say, 1 circle and 1 square that I'm processing, and I have them down here. When the laser head moves to the circle, that's the seek speed. Then it processes. Then when it moves from the circle to create the square, that's the seek speed. By standard, it's just set at 5,500 millimeters per minute. You can change that to quality, which means that the seek speed will match the processing speed. So if I was processing this circle and this square at 500 millimeters per minute, then that would also be my seek speed as well. So the laser head would move down here and move to the square at 500 millimeters per minute. Same thing down here for maintenance. If you're moving your laser head using the position function or checking the range with the area function, you can change the seek speed for that. This is not something that most users are going to need to change. If you want to play around with it, that's your preference, and if you have certain issues, we may recommend that you change it. But for most users, you should just leave it as default. Correction is the same way. Etcher laser users shouldn't need to use this at all. Some fab oil users may find, due to the self-assembly, that their laser is outputting something slightly different than it's showing in the software. In this case, again, reach out to us. We may recommend you change something with correction here. This will change the size, the X and Y, and this will change the angle, or the shear. Again, not something that you need to use as an average user, but you can change it to your preference or to your needs. Other has just one item. You can enable or disable automatic update notifications. I just leave this enabled, then whenever I open the software, if we've made an update, it'll give me a notice that I need to update my software on the computer. So I'm going to make sure everything is back how I like it. And then I'm going to click OK and close that out. And then again, help. If you need to open the software manual, it'll do that for you in whatever browser you normally use. Over here in the top left hand, you can see your connection status. Right now I'm not connected to the machine, so this is giving me this red bar here and no connection. This toolbar will let you edit your design and the processing area. Selection tool will let you move your design around and resize it and rotate it as you want. The pan tool will let you move the screen around. I like to have mine in the middle and zoomed out a little bit. Now here, you know what the magnifying glass tool is. It lets you zoom in, or you can click and hold, then drag to move up and down to zoom in or zoom out. You can also zoom down here at the bottom with zoom in, zoom out, or click whole canvas, which will return your canvas to 0, 0 here. But like I said, I liked mine zoomed out a little bit and kind of centered. Preview, like it says, is just to give you a preview of the design. You can see it changed the grids a little bit. It removed them so I can see a better preview of what's going on. Copy and paste again are just like other softwares. I can click copy, then paste, and now I have two of my design. Notice that it did keep the rotation that I have for it. But I can also delete it if I don't like it, or if I make a mistake, click undo or redo. Now, if you have your machine set as the etcher laser, you'll also have this camera capture function here. This allows you to take a capture of the processing bed. So if you have a design there that you want to copy, or you have your material there, you can then take a picture and then move your design around on the material. Here on the toolbar, when you have a design selected, you can make specific changes to its position, size, or rotation. So if I wanted to move it back to 0 on the x-axis and 0 on the y-axis, I would just type that in and push enter, or I can make adjustments using the arrows right here. My width and height are set. I can make it bigger or smaller, or if I was working with a shape, I could click this button here and it would stop constraining the width and height proportions. So that means if I want to make a change in my width but keep my height the same, I would click this button and then make that change. And now it's no longer a circle because the proportions aren't the same. It's an oval with a height of 2 inches and a width of 5 inches. So I'm just going to cancel out of that here, give it back this little circle, and turn that back on. Then if I want to change the rotation, I can change that to any number right here. And this is a circle, so you can't quite see how it's rotated, but you can see the angle of the bounding box right here. And you can just change that back to 0 if you would like. Again, you can also change it with the arrows. Now, like I've said before, add item is going to give you 3 or 4, depending on your machine, different ways to add a design into the processing area. Select File. We'll open up your computer files, and let's say if I wanted to engrave this image of the Fabul Laser Mini. From Catalog, it gives you 3 different options to add assets that we've added to the software. Shape is going to let you do a cut. This is going to be similar to an SVG file if you added it. This is only going to trace the outline or cut out the shape depending on what your settings are. Engrave is going to fill in the shape similar to a raster image that you may add. This circle that I chose from Shape will just give me the outline, while this is going to fill in the whole circle. Then under the Product tab, you can find things that we've added that are a little more practical than just a shape or design. Like this ruler here, you can see it actually has 4 design parts that's added. Then there are also things like an envelope here, a card holder, or a pop-up card. You can see here we've already added the whole design as well as these little hatching marks here, so when the laser cuts it out, it doesn't cut them out all the way, but you can instead create a line for you to fold along. Text item then is going to give you 3 different options. First, you can select your font up here. You can change it to anything you want to. Then you can change the font settings, so I can bold it, and then I can change its size. Just write text. Now, like I said, there are 3 ways you can do this. You can create fill, which like I said will be like a raster image. We'll create that here. Stroke, which will just give you the outline. Or fill and stroke, which is going to give you both. And you can see comparing the 3, this is filled in completely, this is the outline, and this is outlined with a lighter filling here than you have at text. So now that I've hooked up to the Etcher laser, you can see from the green bar here and from the text that I am connected to the machine. You can also see from the red text below that this is where any error messages will pop up, like that the door is still open. Here's where your processing time will be, so let me add a file, and you can see my processing time is now changed to 30 seconds. Here's the origin button, which will return your machine head to the origin, and position where you can move the laser head around manually. You can also change the origin for your machine and have it start at a different place than it comes by default. Move your laser head to where you want the origin to be. You can then adjust it manually here using the boxes. Then click Set User Origin. You'll then be asked if you're sure. It will give you a little bit of disclaimer and talk to you about changing this setting, and you can either click Cancel or Accept. Now you can see how the grid has changed, as well as how the origin now has an added text because you have changed it. Simply click Position and Reset User Origin again to set it back to the default. Area will give you a square of where the processing is going to happen. So if you click this, it will then send the laser head around the bounding box for whatever item you're processing. Stop then will, of course, stop the laser head from any movement that it's doing. When you're ready, click Start, check the warnings, and then either click Cancel or Start. If you need to pause the laser head, push the pause button here, but notice it will continue processing until it reaches the buffer area. You can then click Play to continue, or Stop if you need to stop anytime during the processing. For Etcher Laser users, once the machine is connected and the door is open, you can now use the capture function. By clicking on the camera icon, you'll be prompted to input the thickness of the material you're working on. You can input any number that you need to in millimeters. I just have a piece of paper in the machine, so I'm going to put 1/2 millimeter in. Then click OK, and the machine will then take a picture of the processing bed. You can hide the processing bed by clicking the preview button like we did earlier to only see your design. For our final look at the user interface, let's take a look at our parameter settings. Here on the right, you can see each of the designs I've added to be processed. by clicking on them, you can enable or disable the design for processing. Notice here that the design is faded, and here it's labeled as ignore, meaning that when you start processing, it won't recognize this design. Click the box again to enable the design for processing. Here, you can change your speed using the text box or the slider function. Notice to the left, the speed is the fastest, and to the right, the speed is the slowest, giving you the lightest or the darkest etching power. The same applies for power. You can change it to 0, the lowest power, up to 100, the highest power. Here with the text box, you can change the number of times you would like your design to be processed. If you find parameters that you like to use with the same type of material, you can come here and click Record to Dictionary. You'll then be prompted to save your parameters. You can add a new title, as well as the description you would like. You can also adjust the parameters here from this window. You can also change the DPI or hatching for any designs that may need that when you use it. Click OK to save. If you need to change any of your settings, simply double-click and it will open up that window again. Or you can now come up to the top to User Dictionary and the User Dictionary Manager. This will show you all of the presets that you have saved to your computer. You can then check them individually to delete them, or check all and delete them all at once. You can review the settings over here or import and export new settings. You can see here on the third tab our presets that we've added to the software. Simply click on the preset you would like and click Apply to apply it to your design. Notice down here this is showing me all the presets for the Etcher Laser 3.5 watt. If you have your machine set for a different machine, you will then see different presets. Also notice at the bottom right corner here, you can change the default display mode. This is the default, while this is the more detailed display mode, giving you the names for each of the designs you've added, as well as the parameters. So that's it for SmartDIYs Creator. Like I mentioned before, please check out the manual if you need more information, or send us an email at support@smartdiys.cc. Thanks for watching!